like to ask you about the news today. The FDA is set to authorize the Pfizer vaccine for children as young as 12 years old. So, okay, good news. Would you speak about what this might mean for herd immunity? From what I understand, herd immunity will only be reached through vaccination. And I've spoken to many doctors who that it's not going to happen naturally, or it's a long shot. So now we have children being vaccinated. So your thoughts?
Well, as of yesterday, about a fifth of the cases that are reported out are in adolescents. A fifth of all cases, so about 22%. So we know that the virus is spreading in that age group. This is not surprising because the older age groups have been vaccinated. We also know that these new variants are more likely to spread. They're more transmissible, which may be why we're seeing lots more spread right now than we had been previously. The opening of the vaccine to a younger age group is going to help us get ahead of this. It will take us a step closer to herd immunity. But also there are many who are still vulnerable. For example, this morning, Jerome Adams, our former Surgeon General and IU assistant professor, he tweeted that he's thankful for this because his wife is dealing with cancer and going through chemo. She's vulnerable. She can't get the vaccine. So he can't wait for his kids to get vaccinated because he recognizes, as our former Surgeon General, that his kids become one of the biggest threats to the health of his wife. So for many, getting kids the vaccine also there's a personal stake to it, which is why it's important. Finally, we just talked about the double mutants, and I'm encouraged to know that the Pfizer vaccine does appear to have effectiveness in preventing the double mutant strain. So that's more good news. We just need to get shots in arms and get ahead of this thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, the Surgeon General, like you mentioned, also, I mean, there's so many people who are going through that situation, and kids are more often, they're symptomatic, but also asymptomatic, and these carriers. So that's going to be and incredibly important for people to be with their family and loved one, especially those who are compromised. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Carlos, I just a recent poll came out. It's very small. It's about 1,200 parents were surveyed, and overall, parents seem to be, based on this survey, 53% of parents will consider vaccinating their kids at some point. And we really want this. And then 20% or 26% plan to get them vaccinated immediately. And could you speak to the safety and efficacy? And I don't know, I think 25% immediately. That's a pretty good number. But could you speak to the safety and efficacy of this in this population? We have to understand that this has been built upon research over a year's worth of research. It's not something new.
Right. The vaccines, the mRNA vaccines like the Pfizer vaccine, they've been in development for many years. It just took us some time initially to take that technology that we had learned and apply it to the new coronavirus. We had to study the virus, know what the target was going to be, and create it, which is part of the reason why it came to market so quickly, simply because we already had that technology. And now that we've had millions and millions of people vaccinated with almost no severe side effects, we can rest assured that it is safe. The other thing to know about viruses like coronavirus is that it's looking like it's going to become endemic. Now, pandemic means global spread, multiple countries of a virus. Endemic means the virus now has the ability to come back month after month, year after year. The great thing about vaccines, much like we've learned with the flu vaccine, is that when you're vaccinated, you develop immunity that lasts for a period of time, maybe a year, maybe more. And as the virus mutates or changes each year, like the flu virus does, that vaccine can continue to offer you some protection. So the flu vaccine, by getting it every year, you protect yourself more and more each year you invest in that vaccine. And we believe the same will hold true for the coronaviruses as well.
Wow. Right. Pandemic to endemic is very interesting. That remember even the CEO of Pfizer said we're going to need booster shots. As soon as maybe 6 months from now, who knows? But that's based on projection, but it's looking very likely, I imagine. And well, so I guess like any other thoughts on this vaccine and these children, and I guess what you touched upon, Dr. Carlos, was a question. I'm sorry, that this has been built upon research, but I remember just reporting that they were doing these trials, and it really came very quickly. But again, like we spoke about, this has been built upon over a year of research. So what would you say to someone who really questions the this expediency in terms of which this is coming to market. And it
Yeah,
can be maybe a little nerve wracking, especially a child. I mean, like, of course. So, sorry.
Yes, Mary, I've had patients in my clinic who think it was rushed, think that corners were cut, and they're obviously worried, and understandably so, because it does seem like a very quick turnaround time. I would just assure them that the technology, the fact that we're using mRNA to generate a target for a vaccine, that technology has been worked on for over 10 years. The thing that enabled us to move quickly was that that was already in place. All we needed was the target. And once we identified the target as SARS-CoV-2 and that caps or crown part of the virus is the target, then we just applied the technology to that to create the vaccine. So this is something that's been worked on, it's been studied, it's been trialed, and the companies that distributed the vaccine, they trialed this in tens of thousands of patients before we went big with everybody. And the safety data is reassuring. So that's how I begin those conversations and talking to my patients about why they should trust the vaccine.
Wow, I mean, right. As you mentioned, we've had mRNA vaccines for I mean, you said a decade?
The technology has been there for a decade.
Okay. And then could you just say that one more time in terms of having that technology and then just needing to find the target? That's so interesting.
So the development of vaccines that utilize mRNA has been going on for 10 years. All we really needed was a target, and SARS-CoV-2 gave us that target. That enabled us to take the technology that we had been developing, apply it to this target, and now the turnaround time was much quicker. We were able to get that vaccine out and into arms in the order of months as opposed to years.
Wow, I mean, science is incredible, right? I mean, years and years of science. And Dr. Carlos, you have 30 seconds left. Anything else you'd like to add in terms of this vaccine, this FDA authorization expected to come early next week?
I would just say that there's a difference between being an absolutely no vaccines ever, we hear that term anti-vaxxer, versus vaccine hesitant. And I think it's very normal for all of us to be vaccine hesitant, let me start over. And I think it's very normal for all of us to have some degree of vaccine hesitancy. And so I think we need to normalize that. We need to work through the reasons why we might be hesitant and remain open as new information comes, more safety data comes, new variants spread. That may change your opinion. And so I would just encourage everybody to keep an open mind. Please join me in trusting science and trusting your doctors, because vaccine is one of the main ways we're going to get ahead of this virus and get things back to normal.
Right. I mean, like you said, I am pro science, pro evidence-based science. And I mean, I found myself a little bit hesitant walking in there to get the vaccine. And I'm like, Mary, this isn't you. I mean, I think, I would have volunteered for one of the clinical trials if I could have. Right. Everyone to a degree has a little bit of hesitancy. And of course, now that, I mean, we're seeing people who have been fully vaccinated and are great. They're going out there and we're having some sort of lift in this world. The world is righting itself now, hopefully. But right, even to know that this has been built upon evidence and research for a decade. And it's really important because, gosh, man, parents are really protective of their kids. And but having that hesitancy is normal.
Another quick point, Mary, that I think may be important for your viewers. Some people I run into say, my immune system is strong. I never get the flu. I never get sick. Why would I ever need a vaccine? And the answer I give to that is with COVID, it's actually your immune system that gets you into trouble. You see, the virus gets a hold of you, and then it's your overwhelming immune response that causes the inflammation in the lungs, the development of the blood clots, and everything else. It's a very unique virus in its proclivity to do those things. So just because you have a strong immune system, you take care of yourself, doesn't mean you're going to fare any better against this virus. So it's just another reason that we need to get out ahead of why this vaccine is important, even for people who don't get sick, feel like they're really strong and have a healthy immune system. You can still get into trouble, and it's still a step you can take to prevent spreading to other people who may be vulnerable.
Right. Always an important message. Exactly. If not maybe for yourself, but for others. And you're right. This is a virus, a disease of inflammation. I mean, the nasal cavity was just the portal. Interesting. Could you just touch upon that? I'm sorry to take up so much of your time. This is so interesting. But how does the immune system? Right, it has nothing to do with that. It really, people go around and say they're healthy. That's great that they're healthy, but this virus spares no one. How does the immune system? How does that? Gosh, I want to sort of say it. I don't want to. What? Can you just repeat what you just said and explain that a little bit more in depth?
So one of the things I've been hearing about, let me start over. So with the coronavirus, once you become infected, your body is going to recognize that there's a foreigner, an invader that doesn't belong. So it generates an immune response. And this immune response creates lots of inflammation. So we generate lots of cells and inflammatory mediators that are released into our lungs and other organs that create a lot of the trouble with getting oxygen in and out, for example. They create the trouble of developing blood clots. And we see inflammation in other organs as well, such as the pancreas and the liver. So the coronavirus starts with an infection, but then it's people's immune system that gets them into a lot of life-threatening complications. This is why one of the main treatments, if you become very ill with the virus, is an anti-inflammatory, dexamethasone, which is a steroid. That's given to suppress one's own immune system so that it doesn't run amok, taking over your organs and resulting in death.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So, this virus is just, it's such a mystery. I mean, we're, beginning to, understanding it now, but it's so fast. I mean, such a mystery for so long, and we've just come so far. Dr. Carlos, thank you so much for your time. It's so interesting. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.